Hey guys, so we're starting our new lesson on absolute value and comparing of integers. Okay, so make sure that you're watching all of your videos and doing your assignments for the week. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so we're going to start with this. So it says, how can a number line help you find two integers that are the same distance from zero? So it says several hot air balloons were flying at the same height. The dashed line below represents their starting point. Which two balloons moved the same distance but in opposite directions? So we want the same distance but in opposite directions. Okay. All right. So in the diagram below, a positive 8 means that balloon A, which is here, climbed 8 feet, okay, in the air. And negative 10 means that balloon B, which is here, moved down 10 feet, okay? So positive 8 tells us that it climbed. Negative 10 means that it moved down, okay? So it says use the diagram to compare the distance each balloon moved. Complete the chart and compare the distance each balloon moved from the dashed line. So it looks like they did C for us. So you can see here, C is sitting right on that dashed line. So that means the integer would be 0 because it didn't move up or down. And so from that starting point, it moved 0 feet. Let's look at balloon D. So balloon D, you can see it went up from the dotted line, and they tell us that it went up positive 10. So our integer is positive 10. It did go up, okay, and it moved 10 feet, okay, because it went up 10 feet. Balloon E, you can see it went down, so that means it's at negative 15, and so its direction was down, and it moved 15 feet in the downwards direction, okay? So determine which two balloons moved the same distance away from the dashed line. So if you look back, okay, we want to find the two that have the same distance. So we have 8, a negative 10, a 0, a positive 10, and a negative 15. So we know that here's a 10 and here's the 10. So they have the same number, but they went in opposite directions because one went up and one went down. Okay, so that means that balloon B and balloon D both moved 10 feet from the dashed line. Just remember this one went down and this one went up, but still moved 10 feet. Okay. Use the number line to determine the distance between each integer and 0. So let's start with number 1. Let's look at negative 2. Okay, remember from our last lesson how to graph a point. Okay, so it says the distance from that integer to 0. So here's 0. So we have 1, 2. So 2 units to the left of 0, but it's still only 2 units. Even though it's negative 2, it moved 2 units to the left. Okay, let's look at the next one, positive 3. So again, we want the distance between that number and 0. So again, here's 0. So let's move 1, 2, 3. So we went 3 units to the right. This time we moved in the right direction. Okay. The first one of these is done for us. So the integer was +3, like we saw up here. The distance between that integer and 0 is 3. Remember, we counted the 3 units. Then we learned about opposites in our last lesson. So remember the opposite, you jump across from 0 to the other side. And so that's where they got -3. And the distance between the opposite integer and 0 is also 3. So again, if we're looking at the opposite, which was -3, the distance, 1, 2, 3, is still 3 units. One's to the right and one is to the left, but still the distance is still 3. All right, so let's look at the next one. The integer is 7. So from 0 to 7, so if we kept going on this number line, we would have 7 spaces. The distance would be 7 units. Then when we're talking about the opposite, remember, if we went 7 to the right, we need to go 7 to the left. So we would have an opposite of -7. And our distance is still that 7 units. One went to the right, one went to the left. Okay, let's look at number 4. The integer is -11. So if here we're starting at 0 and we went all the way to -11, we would have gone 11 units to the left. Our opposite integer, so the opposite of -11 is +11, right? Because we got to go to the right. And the distance is still 11, just to the right. Okay, let's look at number 5, -13. So from 0 to -13, we go 13 units to the left. The opposite of -13 is +13. And the distance from +13 to 0 is still 13, but to the right. The integer is -21. So the distance between 0 and -21 is 21 units to the left. The opposite of -21 is +21. And the distance from +21 to 0 is still 21. Okay? So question 7 says, what can you conclude about the distance from 0 for both an integer and its opposite? So the distance, if you look, the distance are the same. So the distance from 0 to both the integer and its opposite is the same. That's important to remember, okay, that the distance from 0 to both the integer and its opposite is the same. All right, so I'll be recording another video in just a short minute. Make sure you watch that one as well.